The night sky has always been dominated by a silent, glowing sphere we call the moon, a celestial body we've accepted as a natural neighbor for eons. But what if I told you that what you are looking at is not a rock, but a sophisticated piece of ancient technology? Ancient Sumerian legends and suppressed historical archives speak of a time before the moon, a period when our sky was empty until the arrival of the Anunnaki, who brought this satellite into our orbit as a permanent monitoring station. In 1969, when the Apollo lunar module struck the surface, the moon reportedly rang like a hollow bell for over an hour, leading many to ask, is it a massive metallic laboratory designed by Enki and Enlil to manage the genetic mistake of humanity? In this series, GriotVibe will pull back the veil on how this lunar satellite manipulates your DNA, your sleep cycles, and your very emotions, serving as the ultimate frequency barrier before the coming 2027 graduation. Prepare yourself, for the greatest secret in our heavens is about to be revealed. The moon has been our constant companion, a silent watcher in the night that we have taken for granted since the dawn of our existence. But for those who look closer, for those who analyze the physics and the ancient lore, the moon is the greatest anomaly in our solar system. In fact, many leading astronomers have quietly admitted that based on its size, distance, and orbit, the moon simply should not be there. It is too large for a planet of Earth's size, and its orbit is too perfectly circular to be a natural accident. Ancient records from the Proselines of Greece and the oral traditions of indigenous tribes in Africa speak of a time before the moon. They call it the era when the stars ruled the night alone. Then, according to the Sumerian tablets, the chariot of Enki arrived, and shortly after, a new light appeared in the sky, a celestial body that did not behave like a rock, but like a machine. On November 20th, 1969, the world's perception of the moon should have changed forever. When the Apollo 12 lunar module was intentionally crashed into the surface to test seismic equipment, the result was impossible. The moon did not react like a solid mass of rock. Instead, it reverberated. NASA scientists reported that the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. This suggests a hollow interior, a shell-like structure that defies every law of natural planetary formation. If the moon is hollow, what is inside? The density of the moon is significantly lower than that of the Earth, and its surface is covered in a layer of titanium and processed metals that are harder than anything found naturally in our crust. This is not a planet. It is a shield. It is a protective casing for something much deeper, a vast subterranean laboratory that serves as the nerve center for the Anunnaki's management of Earth. As we drift into the shadows of this chapter, we must ask, if the moon is a hollow vessel, who is at the helm? And why have we been conditioned to never look too closely at the craters that seem to hide massive geometric entrances? If Chapter 1 showed us that the moon is a vessel, Chapter 2 reveals its purpose. We have been told that the moon is a dead world, a wasteland of dust and craters. But the high-resolution images that have been leaked over the decades tell a different story. Deep within the craters of the dark side and the Mare Crisium, there are structures that defy nature. Massive glass-like towers, geometric domes, and bridges that span kilometers. This is the Lunar Command Center, the primary base for the Anunnaki's Igigi, or the Watchers. While the Earth was being mined for gold in the Abzu, the Moon was being utilized as the ultimate high ground. From this vantage point, every frequency, every thought, and every biological movement on Earth can be monitored and manipulated. The Moon is the gateway through which the Anunnaki ships travel, using the Moon's internal energy as a refueling station for their journeys back to the 12th planet. The most terrifying aspect of the Lunar Command Center is its role as a frequency broadcast station. Have you ever wondered why the Moon has such a profound effect on our biology? It controls the tides of our oceans, the cycles of female fertility, and even the stability of our mental health. This is not a coincidence. The Anunnaki programmed the Moon to broadcast a low-frequency hum, a signal that keeps the human brain in a state of limited consciousness. This signal is what creates the veil. It is the reason we forgot our true origin. It is the reason the genetic mistake remains docile and easy to manage. The command center inside the Moon acts as a firewall for the human soul, preventing us from reaching the higher vibrations of the stars. But as we approach the 2027 timeline, the machinery inside the Moon is starting to glitch. The broadcast is failing, and the Watchers are losing their grip. The command center is not just watching us, it is holding us back. But the signal is weakening, and the ghost in the machine is finally starting to see the man behind the curtain.
The Moon does not just sit in our sky, it breathes into our minds. Beyond the physical structure we discussed in the previous chapters lies the most sinister purpose of the lunar laboratory, the creation of a frequency barrier. Imagine a net, invisible to the human eye, woven from electromagnetic strands that wrap around the entire Earth. This is what ancient esoteric schools called the Veil of Isis, or the Net of Maya. Scientists have long puzzled over the Schumann resonance, the Earth's heartbeat. But what they often ignore is how the Moon's presence artificially manipulates this frequency. The Anunnaki realized to keep a genetic mistake, a biological being with a hidden divine spark, under control, they could not just use physical chains. They needed to chain the consciousness itself. The Moon acts as a massive broadcasting tower. It emits a constant, low-decibel hum that resonates with the human pineal gland, but in a destructive way. This frequency, which some whistleblowers call the lunar broadcast, acts as a jamming signal. It is designed to keep the human brain stuck in beta and gamma waves, the states of stress, survival, and analytical thinking, while preventing us from easily accessing the theta and delta states, where true intuition and the ghost in the machine reside. When you sleep, your soul naturally tries to expand, to reconnect with the source of the stars. But the frequency barrier acts like a glass ceiling. It reflects your consciousness back down to Earth, creating a reincarnation loop. Ancient Gnostic texts describe the Moon as a soul catcher, a place where the energy of deceased humans is processed, their memories wiped, and their essence sent back to Earth to begin the labor all over again. This is why the Moon is so dead, yet so bright. It is a giant mirror, reflecting not just sunlight, but reflecting our own spiritual energy back at us, keeping us trapped in a cycle of amnesia. Every crater on the Moon is not just a mark of an asteroid. Many are specialized transmitters aimed at specific geographic ley lines on Earth to maintain this grid. Water is the most programmable substance in the universe. It carries memory, it carries frequency, and it carries life. And as we know, the human body is more than 70% water. This is the back door the Anunnaki use to pull our strings. Chapter 4 takes us into the dark science of lunar biology. We are told the Moon pulls the tides of the oceans through gravity. While this is physically true, it is only half the story. The Moon pulls the internal tides of every living cell on this planet. The word lunatic comes from the Moon for a reason. For millennia, hospital staff and police officers have noted that during a full moon, human behavior becomes erratic, violent, and highly emotional. The lunar laboratory uses the Moon's phases to harvest human emotion. When the Moon is full, the frequency barrier is at its strongest, pulling our emotional energy to the surface. This energy, fear, anxiety, and even chaotic lust, is a form of loosh, or emotional food, that the Anunnaki watchers, the Igigi, utilize. They have turned our home into a farm, and the Moon is the harvester. Consider the biological cycles of life. The 28-day lunar cycle perfectly matches the human reproductive cycle. This was not an evolution, it was a synchronization. By locking our biology to the Moon's rotation, the Anunnaki ensured that our physical bodies would always be out of sync with the Earth's natural solar rhythm. We are moon beings living on a sun planet, and this friction is what causes aging, disease, and the short lifespan we discussed in earlier chapters. The junk DNA we carry is like a radio that has been tuned to the Moon's station for 450,000 years. But something is changing. As the 2027 graduation approaches, the broadcast station inside the Moon is running out of power. The tides are becoming unpredictable, and for the first time in history, humans are beginning to wake up in the middle of the night, feeling a strange silence in their heads. The silence of the Moon's machine finally starting to fail.
For decades, we have been told a lie that the Moon is a desolate, dusty wasteland, a dead rock floating in the void. But as we peel back the layers of NASA's redacted archives and the leaked testimonies of high-ranking deep space observers, a much darker reality emerges. The side of the Moon that we never see, the side that is eternally turned away from the prying eyes of Earth, is not empty. It is the most heavily developed piece of real estate in our solar system. According to the secret diaries of early astronomers and the recovered data from the Soviet Zond missions, the far side of the Moon is a sprawling industrial complex. This is the heart of the Anunnaki's lunar presence. Imagine structures so vast they dwarf the pyramids of Giza. Glass-like domes that span entire craters, shimmering like oil on water, and towers that reach 30 kilometers into the black lunar sky. These are the Shard and the Tower, structures first spotted in lunar orbiter photos, but quickly airbrushed out of official public releases. Why is this side hidden? Because it serves as the primary docking station for the Anunnaki fleet. The dark side is the terminal where ships from the 12th planet, Nibiru, arrive after their long journey through the solar system. Here, the raw materials harvested from the Earth, The gold, the minerals, and the louche, or emotional energy, are processed and loaded onto massive arc ships. But it's not just industrial. Whistleblowers who have worked on secret space programs describe what they call the glass cities. These are pressurized habitats with an internal atmosphere where the Igigi, the Watchers, live and maintain the machinery that runs our world. These cities are built using torsion field technology, which allows them to remain invisible to modern telescopes. They exist in a slightly different vibrational frequency than our physical eyes can perceive, yet their physical shadow is always there, lurking in the craters of Mare Moscoviense. The architecture itself is bioorganic, meaning the buildings are alive. They grow and repair themselves using the same DNA technology that the Anunnaki used to create us. When you look at the moon through a high-powered telescope and see strange flashes of light, transient lunar phenomena, you are not seeing meteor strikes. You are seeing the arrival and departure of craft and the activation of the massive power grids that sustain these forbidden cities. This is the command center from which the management of the Abzu is orchestrated, a place where no human is ever allowed to look, for fear that we might realize we are not alone in our own sky.
As we approach the critical window of 2027, the Moon Laboratory is entering a state of catastrophic failure. For over 400,000 years, the Moon has broadcasted a steady, low-frequency signal that kept human consciousness suppressed, a digital blanket that prevented us from seeing the multidimensional nature of our reality. But the machinery inside the hollow moon is ancient, and it was never meant to run forever. The Anunnaki's technology is failing. Across the globe, independent researchers are noticing that the lunar pulse is becoming erratic. In Chapter 3, we discussed the frequency barrier, but now that barrier is cracking. This is why we are seeing a global awakening. The signal that kept our junk DNA dormant is glitching, and as a result, the dormant strands of our genetic code are starting to vibrate. What happens when a satellite shuts down? The broadcast stops, and for the inhabitants of Earth, the stopping of the lunar broadcast means the end of time as we know it. Linear time is a construct maintained by the moon's rotation and its gravitational influence on our brainwaves. As the internal reactors of the Moon Laboratory begin to lose their power, possibly due to solar flares and high vibrational waves hitting our solar system, the veil is becoming thin. By the year 2027, the signal is predicted to hit a 0 point. This is what the ancient tablets refer to as the Great Silence. When the moon stops broadcasting the fear frequency, the human mind will suddenly expand. People will start seeing through the walls of the physical world. Memories of our past lives, our true origin in the House of Life, Bit Shimti, and our connection to the Anunnaki will flood back into our minds. The shadow controllers are terrified. They are trying to replace the moon's failing signal with artificial 5G grids and digital control systems on the ground. But these are weak compared to the celestial power of the Lunar Laboratory. The 2027 signal is not just a glitch, it is the graduation alarm. It is the moment the genetic mistake realizes it was actually a masterpiece waiting for the lights to be turned back on.
We are currently in the countdown phase. The strange moonquakes reported by NASA in 2025 and 2026 are the sounds of the internal engines of the Moon laboratory grinding to a halt. The watcher is leaving his post. The eye in the sky is closing. And as the Moon goes dark, metaphorically and energetically, the inner light of humanity is finally ready to shine.
The long night of the soul is finally coming to an end. For 450,000 years, the Moon has been our silent jailer, a high-tech sentinel that kept the genetic mistake locked in a dream of amnesia. We have lived through thousands of resets. We have survived the floods of Enlil and the biological edits of Enki. But all throughout this journey, the Moon remained the anchor, the weight that held us back from the stars. But as we stand on the threshold of the 2027 timeline, the structural integrity of the Moon laboratory is no longer sustainable. In this final chapter, we look at the moment of the great snap, the second when the frequency barrier finally shatters and the human soul is released from the lunar cycle. For eons, the reincarnation loop was managed from the lunar control rooms. When a human passed away, their essence was drawn towards the Moon's gravity, not the physical gravity, but the aura gravity. The Moon acted as a cosmic vacuum, pulling in the light of the deceased to be processed. Inside the hollow chambers we discussed in Chapter 5, memories were scrubbed using advanced holographic technology. This was the amnesia chamber, designed to ensure that when we returned to Earth for another life of labor, we would not remember who we were or where we came from. But the 2027 graduation changes everything. The cosmic rays hitting our solar system are now so intense that they are literally short-circuiting the Moon's memory-wiping machinery. For the first time, people across the globe are experiencing spontaneous recall. Children are speaking of the stars they once lived on. Elders are seeing the faces of their Anunnaki creators in their dreams. The wall of forgetfulness is falling. The final liberation is a vibrational event. When the Moon Laboratory's broadcast hits 0 point, the concept of fear will become a foreign language to the human heart. Fear was the fuel that the Moon was designed to harvest. Without fear, the Anunnaki's management system has no power. Imagine the moment when billions of humans simultaneously realize that they are not tools, but gods with amnesia. The energy of that realization will hit the Moon like a psychic shockwave, permanently deactivating its control domes. As the satellite of control shuts down, the Earth's natural frequency, the heartbeat of Gaia, will finally synchronize with the Sun. We will no longer be moon beings living in a cycle of decay and death. Our lifespan will begin to expand. Our junk DNA will blossom into its full 12-strand potential, and the physical world will become transparent. We will see the Moon for what it always was, an empty vessel, a relic of a time when we needed to be hidden from our own power. The 2027 graduation is not an end, it is the true beginning. The Anunnaki Watchers are leaving, not because they want to, but because they can no longer exist in the high frequency of a masterpiece that has finally recognized itself. The genetic mistake is over. The ghost has fully possessed the machine. As you look up to the Moon tonight, do not look at it with fear. Look at it as a monument to how far you have come. It is a broken crown, a silent witness to your evolution. The signal is fading, the veil is thin, and you
are finally free to go home.